Laramie, southeastern Wyoming, between the Snowy Range and the Laramie Range. Tuesday, October 6th, 1998.
It was nearly a year ago, October 2018, that I returned to Laramie for Matt Shepard's memorial anniversary events. This little video summarises the amazing people that I met along the way and the fantastic time that I had.
Matthew Shepard's death was not just Laramie's tragedy. At the time, it resonated across the United States. It served as a symbol not just of the gay rights movement, but it became a touch point for equal treatment of all Americans. The nation mourned and tried to make sense of it, and art served as an important lens through which that took place, beginning with the Laramie Project and then on to books, documentaries, and other kinds of productions. But what does it mean today, after nearly 2 decades of reflection and reaction, after all the national debates concerning the rights of America's people and the events that have impacted them? Here again, art has taken the lead. In 2016, the nation's most accomplished touring choir, Conspirare, debuted a 3-part oratorio called Considering Matthew Shepard, composed by Craig Hella-Johnson with the libretto by Michael Dennis Brown. The work has already received a Grammy nomination for its insight and message of hope. Conspirare will perform the oratorio tonight in a free concert, as I've mentioned. For our last session this morning, welcome Craig Hella-Johnson, Michael Dennis Brown, and Charles Wesley Evans of Conspirare, as well as Jason Marsden of the Matthew Shepard Foundation, who will talk about Matthew's legacy and their experience with this profound musical piece. The panel will be moderated by UW professor Nicole Lamartine, who directs many UW choirs, and I will let her introduce the speakers more fully. Professor Lamartine.
A big thank you to everyone for being here to share this conversation this morning. My name is Nicole Lamartine, and I'm Director of Choral Activities here at UW. This is my 11th year, and in the 10 years since coming here, at the 10th anniversary of Matthew Shepard's murder, I've seen a great deal of change. And I've seen a group of students who are so much more aware and compassionate and accepting. And I think that's a true marker of how we've been able to change. One way that we have experienced this change is through an artistic output. And so I'd like to have a conversation today about Considering Matthew Shepard. This new piece, relatively new, composed by Craig Hella-Johnson, which asks us to be open to hearing a story, open to consider what that story means, and how we can take a tragic event and move forward as better human beings towards each other. With me today, we have Conspirare artist Charles Wesley Evans, who in the oratorio sings As the Fence, carrying and holding Matt through the night. To his left, we have composer and conductor of Conspirare, Craig Hella-Johnson, who I describe as being a conduit through which the universe speaks. To Craig's left, we have Jason Marsden, Executive Director of the Matthew Shepard Foundation. He has been instrumental in helping to promote this work and to publicly allow it to percolate and be an agent for change. To Jason's left, we have librettist Michael Dennis Brown, who has collaborated with Craig throughout the genesis of this project in terms of the text for which the music is written. I want to tell you that this piece, Considering Matthew Shepard, is one of the most impactful pieces I've ever experienced as a musician. And last night, I had a few of my students at the dress rehearsal, and afterwards, they couldn't move from their seats. They were riveted for about 27 minutes. And I've never seen such groundedness, such insight, such thoughtfulness in these students. And that is a testament to what this piece of music can do to change lives. The Washington Post says, considering Matthew Shepard demonstrates music's capacity to encompass, transform, and transcend tragedy. Powerfully cathartic, it leads us from horror and grief to a higher understanding of the human condition, enabling us to endure. The impact of this piece of music cannot be understated. So we've heard accounts this morning from various people who were here at the time, 20 years ago, and how we've changed and how we've moved forward. Considering Matthew Shepard provides an artistic opportunity for reflection, growth, and change. So to begin our discussion this morning, why is it important for each of you to be here in Laramie, Wyoming on the 20th year to the day of Matt's abduction and beating? Craig, let's start with you.
Everyone took in a breath. Like, you go. Are these holdable? Yeah, good. Thank you. It's such a pleasure to be with all of you here, and good morning, everybody. Good late morning, I mean. I do want to say, just before, because it feels important to my heart too, just because we have an extraordinary collaborator, Michael Dennis Brown, with me here, who will speak in a bit. But I also want to reference immediately another writer whose texts are crucial and fundamental to this piece, Leslie Newman, whose wonderful book, October Morning, many of you may be acquainted with that collection of poems. She was here in Laramie 20 years ago to the day, I believe, and wrote poems in response to what she was experiencing. And so her fence poems are foundational for this piece too, so I just would mention that. I feel like the deeper we travel in this with Matt's story and with our experience singing this song, I sometimes call it a 105-minute long song for Matt, just a long song, or a singing meditation. So I'm one of those people who was from afar. I was living in San Francisco at the time when I learned about what happened on October 26, 20 years ago. And I never met Matthew Shepard, but something in it, what he experienced and the story that unfolded afterwards also just pierced me. And it's extraordinary that we're here. I feel really kind of wordless in a way today, and I guess I would just start with that, so I might be a little babbly with this particular question if I go on too long, because mostly what I'm feeling is sort of that, you know, with your students, a little bit silent. It feels very grounding to be here. I love kind of meeting, you know, the natural elements here. For one thing, you know, this is the American West that is so beautiful, you know, so beautiful. It just is on its own. And then it's also sort of mythically and in all of our American stories so important for beautiful reasons, but also it's given us such strange notions of maleness, you know, and, you know, from John Wayne on down, you know, just this very narrow little strip of what it means to be a man. And so, you know, and I grew up with that like everybody did. But to be here and sort of meet that and think every time I come out to this part of my beloved America, you know, I want to be more fully myself. I don't want to hide anymore. I want to relate to the soil and to the air and to the cattle, horses, sky, and grass, which is the name of one of the movements. And I want to let it know I'm here. And I want to let it know I'm here, that I recognize it too, in its beauty and its strength, and in that the poetic wind that whips around out here. I did have kind of a heart dream that at some point we could be here and sing it. And I mean, it was a little bit selfish, you know, it perhaps because I felt like a part of our journey needed to be here. And the fact that it has happened to the day, October 6th, it's just kind of extraordinary. So I think I'll just leave it at that. It just means so much, I can't even really articulate it.
I remember exactly where I was the moment I heard the name Matthew Shepard. I remember how my body felt. I can feel it now as I tell you about this. I remember who shared it with me, a man who's become a very special friend and colleague, actually someone who's going to be singing in this concert. So it's very vivid, and that was in 1998. And many of you know the experience I'm talking about when it's a dramatic event that takes hold and you know exactly where you were in that moment in time. I've been thinking and feeling this story since that moment in October of 1998. And I've certainly had people ask me, why is it relevant today? Is it relevant today that we're considering Matthew Shepard now? Why? It's an important question. And my experience has been an incredible, deep yes. There's been so much movement that's happened since Matt's death in terms of the heart of the world opening up to be more accepting, more loving, more including of all people. But we have such a long ways to go. There's still so many ways in our world that we separate ourselves out from one another, and we start to take what feels dark inside of us and we project it outwards, and hundreds of ways. We do it in massive ways, and we also do it in individual ways, just in our own lives. And there is something about Matt's story that transmits such a power. It has been the case for me since I heard it, and especially as I've been composing this piece. Something incredibly potent in it that's an invitation for us to kind of call us forth to discover our better selves, our fuller selves, kind of returning home to a sense of so that we can know who we really are. We've forgotten in many respects. So for me, it has incredible power. It's incredibly relevant with so much that's going on in our world. So I just say to that question, an incredibly potent yes. Matt's story still is so important. A common question that I'm getting these days about considering Matthew Shepard is, what am I going to hear? And so I thought I'd tell you just a little bit about what you're going to hear when you come to hear this new piece that I've created. This is a 90-minute work. It's something that a wonderful friend and colleague of mine called fusion oratorio. So if that doesn't mean anything to you, that's totally okay. But it's oratorio in our choral world really is a storytelling medium, a storytelling genre. So this is telling some aspects of the story of Matthew Shepard. So the way we're doing that musically is fusion. I mean, using all kinds of elements, a variety of musical styles. So included in this piece are chants that I've written, as in Gregorian chant, things that sound like a folk song. There are choral pieces that sound like straight up traditional choral pieces, some for 4 voices, some for 8 voices. There are solo pieces, big dramatic arias that some of our contemporary singers come forward and sing incredibly emotionally and powerfully. It's such an incredible group of singers. And hopefully all of these elements come together to hold this incredibly sacred story of Matt Shepard in a way that can both share the events and also ask questions for each of us. What is this story and what is this man's life inspire us to reflect on in our own lives, in our ever sort of ongoing quest to become more connected as a human family. So that's a little bit about what you may hear at Considering Matthew Shepard.
Let's talk about Matt.
Ordinary war, ordinary war, ordinary war. Born in December in Casper, Wyoming. Ordinary war. To our Father one day his name came to be known around the world. But as his mother said, you knew him as Matthew. To us he was Matt.
Fishing, even hunting for a moose. He read plays and he read stories, and especially Dr. Seuss. He wrote poems with illustrations for the neighbors on the street, and he left them in each mailbox till he learned it was illegal. He made friends and he wore braces, and his brain was rather slow. He sang songs his father taught him. He sang songs his father taught him.
Writes about himself in a notebook.
I am funny, sometimes forgetful, and messy, and lazy. I am not a lazy person though. I am giving and understanding, and formal and polite. I am sensitive, I am honest, I am sincere, and I am not a pest. I am not a pest, I am not a pest, not a pest. I am my own person, I am warm. I want my life to be happy, and I want to be clearer about things. I want to feel good. I love Wyoming. I love Wyoming very much.
I love Wyoming. I love Wyoming. I love Wyoming so.
I love theater, I love good friends, I love succeeding, I love pasta, I love jogging, I love walking and feeling good.
I love Europe and driving and music and helping and smiling and Charlie and Jeopardy. I love movies and eating and positive people and pasta and driving and walking and jogging and icing and running and metaphors and music and smiling and hugging and being myself. I love theater.
I'm here in Prex's pasture in the middle of University of Wyoming's campus with Matt Shepard's memorial bench just behind me. This is my second visit to Laramie, and my poignant and emotional journey has kind of come full circle in respect of Matt's 20th memorial reflections and tributes. I've been in Laramie from the time Matt was abducted on the 6th to the time he passed away 20 years ago today on the 12th of October 1988. I've absorbed an awful lot of information and it will take some time to process it properly, but it would be wrong of me if I didn't say a few words about Matt while I was here in Laramie. Matt didn't die in vain. He would have had no idea of how much he's loved and thought about, and a result of one of the most tragic hate crime murders in history. Whatever the alternative rhetoric that's out there, Matt was certainly a good guy. Through the Matthew Shepard Foundation, set up by his parents, Judy and Dennis, there's been profound campaigning to educate, change and instigate hate crime laws, making the world a better place for every diversity. Without each and every one of us doing our own personal bit of informing and educating, positive progression just never happens. It's vital that Matt's story is educated out there to our next generation. Situations just get better by change. Campaigning and education must never stop. There are other Matt Shepards out there. Matt's murder was horrendous in every aspect, with irreversible changes unimaginable. Matt was left in a location for 18 hours, tied to a fence, in a location where I wouldn't have survived for 1 hour. Cold, remote and bleak. I cannot even begin to comprehend how Matt even survived the 18 hours he was there, tied to that fence. During my week in Laramie, I've attended and immersed myself in informative discussion groups telling Matt's story, from the sheriff at the time, Dave O'Malley, campaigning angels, equality and student groups, along with Rulon Stacey, the chairman of the hospital at the time, and of course I had the honour to meet Dennis Shepard. What does one say to the father of a murdered son? What hit me the most is the abundance of emotional, spiritual love for Matt, a wantingness to ease his pain that night, the want to absorb the pain he must have suffered. I was at a tribute concert for Matt, performed by Conspire, entitled Considering Matthew Shepard, one of the most cathartic, emotive experiences ever, and performed on such a poignant day and location. Laramie is really unique in every way. It's a university town, and for Wyoming, it's progressive. It's the only town in the state of Wyoming to have adopted a non-discrimination ordinance. It's a beautiful mixed town of people and culture, of tradition meets contemporary. The Shepards want Matt's story told for the future, and in my own little way, I feel I've contributed to just a little bit of that. Matt will always be in our hearts, as he is with us all. God bless him.
Please welcome to the stage Executive Director of Wyoming Equality, Sarah Burlingame.
A little known fact about the great state of Wyoming is that we only have 2 escalators in the whole state. Judy says 3, but that is unconfirmed. So I just want you to know that you can tell the Wyoming folks, because that double escalator out there really threw us for a loop tonight. Wyoming table. In 1998, I was reading my oldest son Ashton a new book that was out by an author named J.K. Rowling. It was called Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. We'd moved to Cheyenne, Wyoming in August, and I was just settling into my new home when I heard that one town over, in Laramie, a boy had been found. So on a cold October night, I had the privilege of tucking my son into bed and reading a story about a boy who lived despite the forces of powerful evil that had been lobbied against him. And the mystery of his survival, of course, was the power of his mother's love. And it was the one thing his adversary could not comprehend or defy. I couldn't finish the chapter that night because all I could think of was the woman that I'd seen on my screen. The quiet woman who had asked that we all remember to love our children and to hold them close. And I didn't know then that Judy Shepard was performing a unique kind of alchemy, a kind of alchemy that turns despair into hope and anger into love. I didn't even know it was possible for Judy to transform her grief into a lullaby for all of the vulnerable queer children. For all the lost, all the disenfranchised, her message was simple. You are loved. You deserve love. And we are all charged with creating that possibility for you. Judy didn't stop at confronting homophobia. She drew the link to all manner of oppressions, racial injustice, transphobia, ableism. Everyone was somebody's child and deserved to be celebrated, not just tolerated. Dennis often says that Judy is a 15 out of 10 on the introversion scale. Traveling to over 25 countries, national appearances with heads of state and personalities, this was a fate that was foisted on Judy. This was not a role desired. But if Zion was realized, if our world was right, Judy Shepard would spend her nights curled up on her sofa in Casper. She'd be planning a trip to England to visit castles and indulge her love of history, not meeting with policymakers to discuss why people like her son still don't have justice. Judy may have received numerous awards, including the Elizabeth Birch Equality Award in 2009, the same year she met with President Obama and convinced him to sign the Matthew Shepard and James Byrd hate crimes bill. These are all major accomplishments, but if you know her, you know that it's the children that she has really come to see. And it is their connection that means the most to her. And if you've heard her speak, then you know what motivates this small town Wyoming woman. She's creating a world where no other mother receives the phone call that she did 20 years ago. I don't know of anyone who has done more to make that vision a possibility. It's my great honor to introduce the woman who didn't come from a best-selling series about wizards. She came from the high plains of Wyoming. But she has taught us all that hate and the hateful can still be disarmed by the power of a mother's love. So please help me in welcoming our friend, Judy Shepard.
When I think of all the times the world was ours to dream, when I think of all the times the earth seemed like our home, every heart alive with its own longing, every future we could ever hope to hold, and all the times our laughter rang in summer, and all the times the rivers sang our tune. Was there already sadness in the sunlight? Some some stormy story waiting to be told.